Stilbaai. The name means quiet bay. Holiday makers know it for its tidal pools, sun-warmed dunes, and its estuary where river meets sea. But silence can hold more than peace. It can hold secrets. On April the 16th, 2018, at Gazania Farm, just outside of town, a family gathered for a simple braai under the stars. By 10 p.m., 5 men in orange overalls had shattered that peace forever. Heila Kilian, 63, lay shot through the heart. February 14th, 2022, Valentine's Day in Melkhoutfontein. Annemique Manho, 32, stabbed multiple times in her kitchen. Her 2-year-old daughter Almique drowned in the bath. This is Brick and Blood, South African Town Tales. On April the 16th, 2018, was supposed to be perfect. At Gazania Farm outside of Stilbaai, coals glowed, laughter filled the air, and family had gathered for a braai under the stars. Heila Kilian, 63, was visiting her sister Brenda and brother-in-law David Thomas. It was the kind of evening rural South Africa does best. It is unhurried, it's warm, filled with easy family comfort and the smell of meat over open flames. At 10 p.m., that peace shattered forever. 5 men dressed in orange overalls forced their way into the farmhouse. The attack was swift and brutal. They tied up Brenda and David, silencing any chance of help or escape. What followed was 2 hours of sheer terror that would haunt this farming community for years. The attackers ransacked the house, searching for valuables with methodical greed. But theft was only part of their agenda. In the absolute chaos, Heila was shot through the heart. A single fatal bullet ended a life known for warmth and kindness. As the attackers fled in the family's stolen vehicle, they left behind devastation, not just physical damage, but emotional wreckage of a family forever changed and a community that is now forced to confront its vulnerability. The investigation moved rather quickly. Over the following months, police pieced together all the evidence and the witness accounts. 5 men were arrested, 5, charged with murder, aggravated robbery, and possession of illegal firearms. In December of 2021, only 4 of the 5 accused were found guilty in the George Circuit High Court. The 5th was acquitted. Judge Lister Nuku spoke to the calculated nature of the crime and the lasting trauma inflicted on survivors. In April of 2022, the 4 convicted men received life sentences. Justice was served, but healing was still to come. February the 14th, 2022, Valentine's Day, a day meant for love, became the darkest day in the Manho family's life. In Melkhoutfontein, a modest suburb outside of Stilbaai, Annemique Manho was living the busy life of a young mother. At 32, she was devoted to her family, her husband Alfred, her 9-year-old son Alex, and precious 2-year-old daughter Almique, who brought light and laughter to their small home. That morning, something went terribly wrong. When Alfred and Alex returned home, they found a scene that no family should face. Annemique lay on the kitchen floor, her body bearing multiple stab wounds. In the bathroom, little Almique's lifeless body was found in the bath where she had drowned. The discovery devastated not just the immediate family, but the entire close-knit community of Melkhoutfontein. Neighbors who had heard raised voices the night before now realized they had witnessed something far more sinister than just a simple domestic argument. Investigation quickly focused on someone known to the family, Westphal Karelse, a relative of Annemique's husband. The motive remained complex, tangled in family disputes and personal struggles that escalated into unspeakable violence. Karelse was arrested and charged with double murder. The case moved through the courts with community grief pressing down on every proceeding. In August of 2023, justice was served. Westphal Karelse was sentenced to life imprisonment by the Riversdale Magistrates Court. But for the Manho family, no sentence could bring back a 2-year-old's laughter or a devoted mother's embrace. To understand what happened in Stilbaai, you need to understand how the built environment creates vulnerability. These weren't random acts. They were crimes shaped by architecture, by landscape design, and the social dynamics embedded in different types of spaces. Heila Kilian's murder at Gazania Farm reveals the deadly paradox of rural architecture. The very design elements that create the farming lifestyle's appeal, space, privacy, connection to land, transform into tactical advantages for criminals. When looking at some of the photos that were released, you can envisage the typical Western Cape farmhouse. It's set back from the main roads by long winding driveways lined with indigenous vegetation or large trees. These approaches were designed for aesthetic beauty and agricultural practicality, but they also provide perfect concealment for approaching attackers. The 5 men in orange overalls could observe the property, time their approach, and arrive undetected. The farmhouse itself follows colonial era design principles. Wide verandas, large windows facing outwards towards the views, and open plan living areas that kind of blur indoor and outdoor boundaries. This architecture assumes a benevolent landscape where openness is safe, where the biggest concerns are weather and wildlife, not human predators. Traditional farm security relies on dogs, distance, and community knowledge. Everyone knowing everyone else's business. But modern criminals exploit the gaps in the system. They scout properties during daylight hours when they appear to be either legitimate visitors or workers. Orange overalls aren't suspicious in agricultural areas. They act kind of as camouflage. The ordeal lasted 2 hours. 2 hours of terror in a space designed for family gatherings and peaceful retirement. The farmhouse's isolation, its distance from neighbors, and possibly its poor cell phone reception in some areas, all became weapons in the attacker's hands. The Valentine's Day murders in Melkhoutfontein reveal a different architectural vulnerability. Here, the legacy of apartheid spatial planning creates its own dangers. Township housing was designed for control, not community safety. Streets follow grid patterns that prioritize administrative oversight rather than natural surveillance. Homes are packed tightly together, but their positioning often blocks sightlines rather than enabling protective observation. The Manho family home reflects this design legacy. Small windows facing inward toward tiny yards, high walls or fences that create privacy but also isolation, and limited connection between private and domestic space and public community space. When violence erupted in their kitchen that Valentine's morning, the home's design contained the horror rather than allowing it to be seen and stopped. Township architecture embeds multiple contradictions. Homes are close enough that neighbors can hear everything. Conversations, arguments, domestic disputes, but the design provides no clear protocol for intervention. Thin walls mean sound travels, but high fences mean you can't see what's happening. You hear raised voices, but is it an argument or an assault? The bathroom where 2-year-old Almique drowned represents the most tragic architectural failure. Designed for basic function in minimalist space, these rooms become death traps during domestic violence. Small windows, a single entrance, confined space where a child cannot escape an adult's violence. Both crime scenes reveal how architecture shapes psychological vulnerability. Attackers choose targets based on spatial analysis. Where can they operate undetected? Where are the escape routes? How long before help arrives? The farmhouse attack exploited what security experts call isolated target syndrome. The property's beauty and tranquility created a false sense of safety that made victims psychologically unprepared for violence. The architectural message, "This is a peaceful place," contradicted the tactical reality. The township murders exploited proximate invisibility, violence hidden in plain sight. The home's design allowed neighbors to hear distress without understanding its severity, creating what is called bystander paralysis. When everything sounds like an argument, how does one recognize a murder? But the deeper lesson concerns how architecture embeds assumptions about human nature. Colonial farmhouse design assumed benevolent rural community. Apartheid township design assumed the need to control rather than protect its residents. Both assumptions proved deadly when confronted with modern criminal violence. Architecture isn't neutral. Every design choice, from window placement to driveway length to fence height, creates possibilities for both connection and violence. Stilbaai's murders force us to see familiar spaces through predators' eyes while working to redesign them through community wisdom. The goal here isn't fortress living, but conscious design that recognizes how physical spaces shapes human behavior. Sometimes the most beautiful places are the most dangerous, not because of their beauty, but because of how that beauty can blind us to tactical realities. In Stilbaai, architecture enabled violence, but architecture thoughtfully reconsidered might also help prevent it. Heila Kilian, 63, a grandmother whose hands never stopped giving. She baked for church fundraisers, knitted blankets for newborns, and tended gardens that fed both body and soul. On April 16th, 2018, she chose to spend her evening exactly as she'd lived her life, surrounded by family at a braai under the stars. She was shot through the heart while creating the moments of connection she treasured most. Annemique Manho, 32, a mother working 3 jobs, but always finding time for 9-year-old Alex's homework and 2-year-old Almique's bedtime stories. Her kitchen in Melkhoutfontein was the heart of their home. Fresh bread on Sundays, children's laughter during afternoon snacks. Valentine's Day 2022 should have been about love. Instead, she was stabbed in the space where she'd shown love daily. Almique, 2 years old, learning nursery rhymes, collecting smooth stones from Stilbaai's beach, believing absolutely in her parents' protection. A beautiful child's life ended in her own bath, the place where her mother had sung to her, where safety should have been absolute. Their deaths created voids no amount of justice can fill. Empty chairs at family braais, kitchen silent of children's laughter, a father and brother learning that love cannot always protect. We remember them not to sensationalize violence. Their names deserve to be spoken with respect. Their lives celebrated. Their deaths transformed into determination that no family should endure such loss again. Architecture of safety isn't just about walls and locks. It's about designing communities where care can flourish and violence struggles to take root, where farm properties maintain their welcoming nature while protecting their families, where township homes foster community connection while ensuring individual security. Stilbaai is shaped by tides, rising, falling, returning. But some things don't return. A mother's embrace, grandmother's laugh, toddler's voice. These are not faceless victims. These are women and a gorgeous little girl. They are loved and remembered in a town built for peace. Their deaths remind us that vigilance and compassion must flow together like a river meeting sea. If this story moved you or made you think, please follow Brick and Blood on your favorite podcast app. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and share this episode. Your support help keep these forgotten stories alive. Until then, walk softly, listen deeply, and remember, every wall has a story.